By 6:14 in the morning, the woman whose life I had helped save was asking for me, and St. Catherine Regional Hospital was insisting I had never touched her chart. My badge stopped working at the staff elevator. The reader flashed red once, then again. Access revoked. A security officer named Luis Mendoza stood 3 steps behind me. He looked embarrassed. "Miss Mercer," he said quietly, "I need your identification card." At St. Catherine, I was a night shift resource nurse, useful, forgettable, and careful to remain both. I had let them believe that was all I had ever been. I turned and handed him the badge. Through the glass wall of the intensive care waiting room, I could see my sister-in-law speaking to a tall man in a charcoal suit. Megan Mercer wore pearl earrings and a cream jacket that never seemed to wrinkle. She was my older brother David's wife, St. Catherine's chief nursing officer, and the person who had spent 3 years telling our family she had rescued me by giving me a job. The man beside her had silver hair cut close at the sides, and the posture of someone who still expected rooms to organize themselves when he entered. Retired 4-star General Marcus Ward. I recognized him from news photographs before anyone said his name. Megan held both of his hands between hers. "Your wife is alive because our emergency system worked exactly as designed," she told him. The general looked through the glass toward the intensive care unit. "Who found the bleed?" Megan answered without pausing. "Our team did, not a lie large enough to challenge." "Not yet. A hospital team had saved Evelyn Ward, Doctor." Leo Grant had ordered the scan. Dr. Samira Patel had opened the operating room. The blood bank had sent 12 units in less than 20 minutes. 2 transporters had run a stretcher through a corridor that was still being waxed. But the system had not worked exactly as designed. For 11 minutes, Bay 6 had not had an assigned nurse. For 7 minutes, the rapid response pager had gone unanswered. And before anyone else believed Evelyn was bleeding internally, she had gripped my wrist and said, "Please don't let them send me home." Megan saw me through the glass. Her expression did not change, but she released the general's hands. She stepped into the hallway and closed the waiting room door behind her. "You should be downstairs with employee health," she said. "I was told to surrender my badge. That is part of the process." "What process?" "Administrative leave pending review." "Review of what?" "Practicing outside assignment. Unauthorized access to a restricted blood refrigerator. Failure to follow chain of command. Potential contamination of a downtime record." She listed the charges in the calm tone she used at family dinners when explaining why David should not give me a key to their lake house. I looked at the red leather folder under her arm. At 3 in the morning, that folder had been empty. Now it held the original paper forms from Bay 6. My name had been on 6 of those pages. "Megan," I said, "where is the response packet?" "Quality has it. You have it. I am Quality's executive sponsor." "That is not what I asked." Her eyes moved toward Luis. He looked away. Megan lowered her voice. "You were not assigned to Mrs. Ward. There was no one assigned to Bay 6. You entered anyway. She was deteriorating. You activated a massive transfusion without an attending physically present. Dr. Grant confirmed it by phone, after you had already opened the cooler. Because her pressure was falling, and if you had been wrong..." "I wasn't." Megan's mouth tightened. That answer had always bothered her. Not because it was arrogant, because it left no room for the favor she believed I owed her. She looked down at my empty badge clip. "Go home, Rachel." "Does General Ward know who was in Bay 6? He knows his wife received excellent care." "That was not my question. No, it was your need." The words landed with the precision of something rehearsed. Megan had been telling David for years that I confused service with identity. That I needed crisis in order to feel useful. That the army had left me unable to live in rooms where nobody required saving. Some of it was close enough to true that I had never known how to defend myself without sounding like proof. Megan leaned closer. "Do not turn this into another battlefield." Behind her, the general moved toward the intensive care doors. "I am not," I said. "You are turning it into a press release." For the first time, her expression slipped, only slightly. Then the automatic doors opened and a unit clerk approached carrying a clear plastic valuables envelope. "Mrs. Ward's jewelry," she said. "The family asked for it." Megan took the envelope before the clerk could enter the waiting room. Inside were a gold wedding band, a silver watch, and a narrow bracelet engraved with 3 initials. A white chain of custody seal ran across the top. I had removed the jewelry before Evelyn went to the operating room. I had placed each item inside the envelope, counted them in front of Luis, and signed the seal. Rachel Mercer, RN 3:17 a.m. Megan saw the name at the same moment I did. Her thumb moved across the writing. She could remove me from the response packet. She could mark my electronic note as entered in error. She could disable my badge before sunrise, but she could not open a sealed property envelope without breaking the chain of custody. The waiting room door opened behind her. General Ward stepped into the hallway. His gaze moved from Megan's face to the envelope in her hand. "My wife's ring?" Megan gave it to him. He checked the contents, then turned the envelope over. His eyes stopped on the seal. "Who is Rachel Mercer?" Megan answered first. "A staff member who is no longer involved in your wife's care." The general looked past her, at my empty badge clip, at the stained cuff of my scrubs, then at Luis, who was still holding my identification card. The hallway became very quiet. General Ward lifted the envelope. "That is not what I asked," he said. When Luis shifted my surrendered badge, something slipped from behind the plastic sleeve and struck the tile with a clean metallic crack. A Bronze Army Nurse Corps challenge coin spun beneath the fluorescent lights, the Landstuhl crest flashing once before it settled. General Ward bent, picked it up, and turned it once between his fingers. My name and former rank were engraved along the rim. He looked from the coin to the signature across the unbroken property seal. "Major Mercer." Megan's fingers closed around the edge of the red leather folder. I said nothing. General Ward kept the valuables envelope raised between two fingers. "Who is Rachel Mercer?" Megan's voice stayed smooth. "She is a clinical resource nurse. She was not assigned to your wife." The general looked at me. "Were you in the room?" "Yes, sir." "For how long?" "From 2:48 until transport took her to the operating room." Megan stepped closer. "Rachel assisted during a staffing transition. The attending team directed the case. That was true in the same way a door can be called a wall if you describe only the hinges." General Ward studied my face. "Did my wife speak to you?" "Yes." "What did she say?" I could have repeated the sentence Evelyn had given me. "Please don't let them send me home," but it belonged to her, not to the hallway. "She asked me to stay." Before he could answer, Doctor Samira Patel came through the intensive care doors. "General Ward, your wife is stable. I want to explain what we found." Everything in his face reordered itself. He followed her into the consultation room without another question. Megan waited until the door shut, then she looked at Luis. "Escort Rachel to employee health. I know the way," I said. "I am sure you do." Luis walked beside me anyway. At the elevator, he handed me a receipt for my surrendered badge. Beneath the printed line, he had written the time. 6:19 a.m. "Keep that," he said. The Army had taught both of us that unnecessary records often became necessary after someone important changed the story. I folded it behind my driver's license. Employee health assigned Tasha Green to evaluate me. She had trained under me 2 years earlier and once cried in a supply room after losing her first patient. I had told her grief was not a performance review. Now she avoided my eyes while documenting that I was tired but oriented, showed no impairment, and denied taking anything that could affect judgment. "I'm sorry," she said. "You did your job. That is what people say when they want you to forgive the job." I looked at her. She gave me a tired half smile. "I learned from you." By 7:10, I was sitting in my car on the top floor of the parking garage. Morning staff crossed the pedestrian bridge carrying coffee and clean expectations. My phone showed 4 missed calls from David. The 5th came while I was looking at the screen. "What happened?" he asked. Not "Are you all right?" Not "Did Megan suspend you?" What happened, as if the event had arrived without a person attached. "Megan removed me from the ward response record." David exhaled. "Rachel." The way he said my name made it sound like I had brought a difficult animal into his house. "She put me on administrative leave before the end of my shift." I heard there were concerns about protocol. "You heard that quickly." "She called me." "Of course she did. Meg is trying to keep this contained." "Contained from whom?" "From becoming a public embarrassment." I looked through the windshield at St. Catherine's glass tower. The first time Megan offered me work there, I had been home from Landstuhl for 6 months, newly retired as a major in the Army Nurse Corps. My retirement paperwork was delayed, my Virginia license was still transferring, and I was sleeping in David's guest room beneath a framed sign that said "Family is forever." Megan found me a temporary position reviewing emergency preparedness manuals. She told everyone she had created the role because I was struggling. The role already existed. The nurse assigned to it was on maternity leave. I never corrected Megan at dinner when she described saving me from unemployment. That was the first payment. After my license cleared, I took weekend shifts, then nights, then clinical resource coverage, the job nobody noticed until 3 units needed help at once. Each promotion came through a committee. Megan referred to each one as another chance she had given me. At Thanksgiving, she once told a cousin that the Army had made me excellent in emergencies and difficult everywhere else. Everyone laughed because she said it with affection. I washed the plates. Silence can begin as manners. Then it becomes family policy. David, did she tell you Bay 6 had no assigned nurse? She said there was a coverage delay, 11 minutes. She said the patient was never unattended. She was unattended when I entered. You were not assigned there. The sentence belonged to Megan. Hearing it in my brother's voice hurt more than it should have. What do you think I should have done? Call the supervisor. The supervisor did not answer, then document it. I did. A longer pause. Where is that documentation now? He asked. With your wife. He lowered his voice. Rachel, Megan is up for the chief operating position next month. The board will use any staffing irregularity against her. There it was, not the reason she erased my name, the reason David needed me to accept it. You know how much she has worked for this, he continued. She helped you when you came home, I know, then do not make her regret it. For 3 years, Megan had treated one temporary job as a debt that gained interest every time I succeeded without her. David had just told me the debt was large enough to include my name. I need to sleep. Promise me you will not contact the general. I do not have his number, that is not what I asked. I closed my eyes. It was the second time that morning someone had used those words. No, I said, I will not promise that. After I ended the call, a voicemail notification appeared. The message had been left at 6:41 from an internal hospital extension. A woman's voice spoke softly over the sound of medical equipment. This is Evelyn Ward. I am told you have gone home. A pause. Then a breath that sounded painful. I would like to know why the nurse who stayed with me is missing from every name they have given my husband. I did not return Evelyn Ward's call, not because Megan had warned me. Because a patient who had just come out of emergency surgery should not have to manage the employment crisis of the nurse who helped her get there. I saved the voicemail, placed the phone face down on the passenger seat, and drove home. Sleep did not come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Bay 6 before anyone understood it mattered. At 2:37 that morning, St. Catherine was operating on paper. I was helping on the cardiac floor when the emergency department charge nurse called my hospital phone. Can you check Bay 6 on your way back, she asked. The primary nurse is tied up in trauma. Who is covering? A pause. I thought Dana was. Dana was transporting another patient to intensive care. How long has 6 been alone? I don't know. That answer changed the way I walked. Bay 6 was behind a curtain near the end of the observation corridor. The paper tracking board listed Evelyn Ward, age 68, abdominal discomfort, possible discharge. She was sitting upright on the stretcher with her coat folded beside her. At first glance, she did not look critically ill. That is one reason people miss internal bleeding. The body can remain polite while it is failing. A discharge instruction sheet rested on the counter. Mrs. Ward, she opened her eyes. They said someone was coming. I'm Rachel. I'm going to check you while we wait. I think I embarrassed myself. How? I nearly fainted in a restaurant. That is not embarrassing. My husband makes it sound dramatic. Is he here? Parking the car, she tried to smile, then pressed one hand beneath her left ribs. Where does it hurt? Mostly there, and my shoulder. Which shoulder? The left. I checked her pulse manually. It was weaker than the monitor suggested. I asked when the pain started, whether she had fallen recently, and whether she took blood thinners. She told me she had slipped against a kitchen counter 4 days earlier, but had not hit the floor. She took a Pixaban for an irregular heartbeat. The pain had worsened after dinner. I lowered the head of the stretcher. What are you doing? She asked. Making it easier for your heart to work. Her pressure was now 92/56. I pressed the call button. No answer. I called the charge phone. It rang until voicemail. Evelyn watched my face. Am I going home? Not yet. She reached for my wrist. Please don't let them send me home. I won't. That was the promise Megan later called my need. At 2:48, I wrote my name on the first downtime sheet. Rachel Mercer, RN. I documented the pressure, the weak pulse, the left shoulder pain, the anticoagulant, and the fall. Then I called Dr. Leo Grant, the emergency physician covering 3 resuscitation rooms. He answered over alarms. What do you have? 68-year-old female. Worsening left upper abdominal pain. Referred shoulder pain. Anticoagulated. Pressure falling. Pulse weak. Possible internal hemorrhage. Her hemoglobin was normal. From nearly 2 hours ago, she was being discharged. She is not being discharged now. He was silent for less than a second. Repeat pressure and get her to CT. I'll meet you there. The transport line did not answer. Luis was stationed near the ambulance entrance. I called security and asked him to bring the nearest available stretcher transporter. He arrived himself. By then, Evelyn's pressure had fallen again. We moved her toward imaging with a portable monitor balanced near her feet. Halfway down the hall, she whispered that she felt cold. I had heard those words before, in tents and helicopters. In hallways where people tried to sound calm because they believed calmness might make the body obey. At the CT doors, the technician said there was no electronic order. The system is down, I said. I need a paper authorization. I handed her the downtime sheet. It needs an attending signature. Dr. Grant had not arrived. Evelyn closed her eyes. I called him again and placed the phone on speaker. I authorized the scan, he said. Put my name on the downtime form and I'll countersign. The technician hesitated. I looked at her. If we wait for the computer, we may be documenting why we waited. She opened the doors. The scan showed free fluid around the spleen and a large collection of blood in the abdomen. A small injury from the fall had continued bleeding, while the anticoagulant prevented it from sealing. Dr. Grant arrived before the images finished loading. He looked once at the screen. Call surgery. Activate massive transfusion. The rapid response pager did not answer. The blood bank asked for an electronic confirmation that could not be entered. The emergency refrigerator required badge access from an assigned emergency nurse or a clinical resource nurse. My badge worked then. I opened it. At 3:03, I removed the first cooler. At 3:07, Dr. Grant confirmed the activation by telephone with the blood bank. At 3:12, Dr. Patel accepted Evelyn for surgery. At 3:17, I removed the jewelry from Evelyn's hands and wrist because the operating room could not take responsibility for it. Luis witnessed the count. I sealed the envelope. At 3:21, transport arrived. Evelyn was awake when we reached the operating room doors. Are you coming? She asked. They will take care of you inside. You said you would stay. I stayed until there was somewhere safer for you to go. She looked at my name badge as though trying to memorize it. Rachel, yes, make sure my husband knows I was not imagining it. I thought she meant the pain. I will. The operating room doors closed. When I returned to the emergency department, Megan was standing beside Bay 6 in a cream jacket over dark trousers. She did not work nights. She had come in because the patient's husband had identified himself at the surgical desk. A retired 4-star general could bring a chief nursing officer out of bed faster than an unanswered rapid response pager. Megan held the downtime packet. Why is your name on this chart? Because I was with the patient. You were assigned to cardiac support. Bay 6 had no coverage. We had a brief transition. 11 minutes. Her eyes moved to the time beside my first entry. You opened restricted blood storage without the attending present. He authorized it. Afterward. 4 minutes afterward. That is still afterward. She took the top sheet from the packet. The carbon copy beneath it retained every mark. She did not notice me fold that copy and place it beneath the clear cover of the mobile resuscitation clipboard. Go finish your shift, she said. Quality will reconstruct the timeline. By sunrise they reconstructed it without me. By noon, St. Catherine had sent me 3 documents. The first was a notice of administrative leave. The second instructed me not to contact staff members involved in the ward case. The third was a summary of the incident. It described an unassigned clinical resource nurse who had entered Bay 6 without authorization, delayed escalation by bypassing the charge nurse, and accessed emergency blood products before receiving a formal physician order. It did not use my name until the final paragraph. Rachel Mercer was removed from duty to preserve the integrity of the review. The sentence made me laugh once. Because Megan had erased my name from every action that helped Evelyn, then restored it only where blame was required. I printed the documents and placed them on my kitchen table. At 12:27, Dr. Grant called. I was told not to contact you, he said. Then why are you calling? Because I was also told you initiated blood release without authorization. You authorized the CT and the transfusion, I know. Did you sign the downtime forms? I signed the forms that were handed to me. Was my name on them? A pause. No, I looked at the hospital summary again. Who gave them to you, Megan? Did you ask where the original sheets were? I did after Mrs. Ward asked why your name was missing. What did Megan say? That the original packet had been contaminated and rewritten for legibility. So what did you do? I asked. I documented my recollection in an email to Medical Affairs. That mattered. Not enough to save my job by itself, but enough to make removing me more expensive. Leo, do not turn this into a fight for me. It is not for you. His voice sharpened. It is for the next person Megan decides was never there. After the call ended, I sat at the kitchen table and listened to the refrigerator cycle on and off. At 1:15, David came to my house. He did not knock before using the spare key. Megan had been right about one thing. David should never have had it. He entered carrying a paper bag from the deli near his office. I brought lunch. I am not hungry. You have not eaten. You do not know that. You always forget after nights. He placed the bag on the counter. Then he saw the hospital documents on the table. His shoulders changed. Megan said legal approved that language. Legal approved a story without my name in it. She is trying to protect the hospital. She is trying to protect herself. David pulled out a chair. If you force a public dispute, the board could terminate her. She removed evidence from a patient record. You do not know that. I know what I wrote. She said the paperwork was damaged. It was in a red leather folder. You saw it after a long shift. I stared at him. He looked away first. Megan says you have been struggling with boundaries since the army. There are sentences that reveal more about the person repeating them than the person they describe. Did she ask you to say that? No. Did she tell you Evelyn Ward left me a voicemail? His face answered before he spoke. She should not have contacted you. She asked why my name was missing. You cannot use a patient against Megan. I did not call her, but you saved the message. David stood. Delete it. No. Rachel, please. The word please had always worked better on me than anger. Megan knew that too. I folded my hands on the table. Why are you more frightened of her losing a promotion than of what she did? She is my wife, and I am your sister. That is different. Yes, I said, it is. His expression tightened. He picked up the deli bag but left it on the counter. At the door he stopped. She really did help you. I know. She gave you a place when you had nowhere else. I had a temporary license delay. I was not homeless. That is not how it looked. To whom? He had no answer. After he left, I changed the lock code. At 3:46, Megan called from a block number. I let it ring. She called again. On the third call, I answered. David should not have come to your house, she said. You sent him. I asked him to check on you. You asked him to make me delete a patient voicemail. Silence. Then her voice cooled. Possessing that message may violate hospital privacy policy. The patient left it for me. You were on leave when you received it. She did not know that. You need to stop treating every rule as optional when you believe you are morally correct. I looked at the incident summary. You need to stop treating every record as editable when it threatens your promotion. Her breathing changed only once, then she recovered. The board meets Friday. If you cooperate, this can remain an internal matter. What does cooperation mean? You acknowledge that you entered Base 6 outside assignment, acted before formal authorization, and contributed to confusion during downtime. And the missing nurse? There was no missing nurse. The unanswered pager? Technical delays occur. The original forms? Illegible. They were legible when you took them. Megan was quiet long enough for me to hear another voice in her office. A woman speaking quickly, then Megan covered the receiver. When she returned, the polish had left her tone. I have to go. What happened? That does not concern you. The call ended. 4 minutes later, an email arrived from St. Catherine Compliance. It had been sent to me. Dr. Grant. Dr. Patel, Megan, the hospital president, and outside counsel. The subject line read, Recovered Downtime Document Evelyn Ward. A unit clerk cleaning the mobile resuscitation clipboard had found a carbon-backed sheet beneath its transparent cover. Following policy, she had scanned it before placing it in secure storage. The attached image showed my handwriting. 248, pressure falling. 251, physician notified. 256, seat authorized by telephone. 303, emergency blood cooler accessed. At the bottom, beside the first set of initials, was a small brown mark where Evelyn's hand had rested while I wrote. The document had not been hidden by me as part of a plan. I had placed it beneath the clear cover because the clipboard was wet, and I needed both hands. Then I had forgotten it existed. Megan had forgotten too. At the end of the compliance email was one sentence. Please preserve all original materials. No further reconstruction is authorized. The review was moved from Friday to Wednesday morning. Not because of me, because Evelyn Ward asked for a copy of her medical record. Patients have that right. Most hospitals respond within days. St. Catherine responded in 42 minutes by convening outside counsel. At 9 o'clock, I entered a conference room on the executive floor wearing civilian clothes and carrying nothing but the administrative leave notice. Megan sat near the head of the table. General Ward sat against the wall. He had no vote. He had been permitted to attend because Evelyn had authorized him as her representative. That distinction mattered. Power looks different when it is forced to sit quietly and listen. Charles Wynne began with language about patient safety, confidentiality, and the need to avoid premature conclusions. Megan folded her hands. We all want the same thing, she said. A fair understanding of an unusually chaotic downtime event. The compliance director, a woman named Marisol Vega, opened a laptop. The event was chaotic, she said. The records are not. Megan's fingers stopped moving. Marisol projected the recovered carbon sheet onto the screen. My handwriting filled the wall. 248, 251, 256, 303. The document was found beneath the protective cover of a mobile resuscitation clipboard, Marisol said. The clerk who recovered it scanned it before notification reached nursing administration. Megan leaned forward. A carbon copy is not necessarily complete. No, Marisol said. That is why we compared it with independent systems. She advanced the slide. The first audit came from the CT scanner. Evelyn Ward's study had begun at 2:58. The machine record showed the technician's login, the patient label, and the order field marked downtime verbal authorization. Grant M. Dr. Grant spoke without being asked. I authorized the study at 2:56. Megan looked at him. You countersigned later. Yes. So at the time, there was no formal order. There was a physician order, he said. There was no electronic signature because the electronic system did not exist at that moment. Outside counsel wrote something. Marisol advanced again. The blood refrigerator audit showed my badge opening the restricted unit at 3:03. Megan looked toward Charles Wynne. That supports the concern. Marisol raised one hand. The next line showed Dr. Grant's telephone confirmation to the blood bank at 3:07. Then came the cooler release log, then the massive transfusion activation sheet, signed by Dr. Grant at 3:29 after the system returned. The 4-minute interval is consistent with emergency verbal authorization, Marisol said. Hospital policy permits this when delay presents immediate risk. Megan's voice remained controlled. The attending was not physically present when Rachel acted. Dr. Patel answered, neither was the surgeon. That is why emergency protocols exist. Megan turned toward her. You were not in Bay 6. No, Dr. Patel said. I was in the operating room preparing to repair the injury Rachel recognized. The room became still. Megan opened the red folder. I am concerned that this process is becoming personal. General Ward shifted in his chair. Charles Wynne looked at him. General, I have not spoken. No, sir, I would like that noted. Marisol did not smile, but Luis looked down at the table. The next evidence came from the internal phone system. St. Catherine recorded operational calls during downtime for quality reconstruction. The audio was imperfect. Alarms covered several words. My voice came through first, pressure falling, weak pulse. Left shoulder referral, anticoagulated, then Dr. Grant. Repeat pressure and get her to Keats. I authorized the scan. Later his voice again, call surgery, activate massive transfusion. Marisol stopped the recording. The actions were directed by a physician. Megan closed the folder. Then why was Rachel outside her assigned area? The emergency charge nurse answered, because I called her. Everyone looked at her. She had been pale since entering the room. I asked her to check Bay 6 because the assigned nurse was tied up in trauma. Megan's head turned slowly. You told quality that coverage had been arranged. I thought it had. Was Bay 6 unattended? The nurse swallowed. For 11 minutes, Charles Wynne removed his glasses. Megan, your incident summary says there was no coverage gap. There was no gap in available nursing resources. Rachel was physically present. I looked at her. The room heard it too. For 3 days, Megan's position had been that I should not have entered Bay 6. Now she was using my presence to prove Bay 6 had never been unattended. Mercer advanced to a staffing report. "This is the coverage matrix exported at 4:18 Wednesday morning," she said. It listed Dana as covering Bay 6. Dana's transport assignment showed she had been in the intensive care elevator with another patient at that time. Mercer opened a second file. "This is the matrix as originally saved at 11:30 the previous evening." Bay 6 was blank. The room did not move. Megan looked at the screen. "Scheduling files are routinely updated," yes, Mercer said. "But this version was modified at 4:12 in the morning from your administrative account." Megan's face lost color so gradually that I might not have noticed if I had not spent years watching patients compensate before collapse. I corrected the assignment after confirming Rachel had provided coverage. "You entered Dana's name," Mercer said. "It was an administrative reconstruction." "After the event, yes, without identifying it as a late entry." Megan looked toward outside counsel. He did not look back. General Ward finally spoke. "My wife asked for the name of the nurse who stayed with her." Megan turned toward him. "General, no one is denying that Miss Mercer was present. That is precisely what your hospital denied before sunrise." His voice remained quiet. "I am not asking you to decorate her service. I am asking why you removed it." Megan's hand rested on the red folder. "She violated chain of command." General Ward looked at me. "Did you?" I thought about the unanswered pager, the empty assignment line. The CT technician waiting for a signature from a computer that was not working. "Yes," I said. "I stepped outside my assigned unit." Megan's shoulders eased, then I continued. "I did not step outside my scope." Dr. Patel nodded once. Mercer advanced to the final slide. It showed the clear valuables envelope. My name remained across the unbroken seal. 3:17 a.m. below, it was a still image from the operating corridor camera. Luis and I stood beside Evelyn's stretcher. I was holding the envelope while Evelyn looked directly at my badge. The timestamp matched. "The patient property chain confirms Ms. Mercer remained with Mrs. Ward through transfer," Mercer said. "There is no support for removing her from the care timeline." Charles Wynne looked at Megan. "Who instructed Health Information Management to exclude her?" Megan did not answer. He asked again. This time her voice was very quiet. "I did." No one gasped. "Real rooms do not react like courtrooms on television." Dr. Grant leaned back. The human resources representative stopped writing. Luis folded his hands. General Ward lowered his eyes to the envelope photograph. And I felt no triumph. Only the strange emptiness that comes when someone finally admits taking something you had already learned to live without. Charles Wynne adjourned the meeting for 20 minutes. When we returned, Megan's chair was empty. Outside counsel announced that she had been placed on administrative leave, pending an independent review of the ward record, emergency department staffing, and all downtime documentation altered during the previous 12 months. Her candidacy for chief operating officer was suspended. Access to clinical records and scheduling systems had been disabled. No one used the word terminated, not yet. My own leave was rescinded, but I was not told to return to the floor. Human Resources offered paid restoration leave while the hospital reviewed whether my badge suspension and incident notice had violated policy. They also offered to remove the disciplinary documents from my personnel file. "Remove them," I said. "Do not replace them with an award." The representative looked surprised. Charles Wynne folded his glasses. "Miss Mercer, the hospital would like to recognize your actions. The hospital can recognize the staffing gap first." He nodded slowly. "That will be part of the review." "Put it in writing." Marisol Vega wrote the request down. General Ward remained against the wall until the meeting ended. Then he approached me in the hallway. "My wife would like to see you. When she is stronger. She asked me to tell you she is already stronger than I think." "That sounds like her." His expression softened. "She remembers your promise." I looked toward the conference room door. I almost misunderstood what she meant. "She meant the pain," he said, "and she meant herself." He extended his hand. I took it. He did not salute me. He did not call anyone at the Pentagon. He did not offer to ruin the hospital. He simply said, "Thank you for staying." That was enough. Megan was waiting near the executive elevators. Her badge was gone. The red leather folder remained under her arm, though it now looked less like authority and more like something heavy she had forgotten to put down. "May I speak with my sister-in-law?" she asked. Marisol looked at me. I nodded. We walked to an empty family consultation room. Megan closed the door but did not sit. "You have what you wanted," she said. "I wanted my name left where I wrote it. You knew this would cost me the position." I did not know the carbon sheet existed until compliance emailed it. "You knew the voicemail existed, yes, you kept it." "Yes," her jaw tightened. "For 3 years I protected you here. You hired me into a temporary position that already existed. I made people take you seriously, my work did that. I defended you when administrators thought you were too rigid, too military, too willing to challenge physicians. Did you defend me, or did you make every success sound like proof that I belonged to you?" Megan looked away. Through the narrow window, hospital staff moved along the corridor carrying charts and coffee. Nothing outside the room had paused for us. "My career should not end over one bad decision," she said. "It was not one decision, it was one night. You changed the staffing matrix. You replaced original forms. You told Health Information Management to remove me. You sent David to my house to make me delete a patient's message." Each sentence took something from her posture. She placed the red folder on the table. I panicked. I know. I saw the empty assignment line and understood what the board would do with it. "So you gave them me instead." Her eyes filled, but the tears did not fall. "You would have lost a promotion," I said. "You were willing to let me lose my profession. I thought the review would clear you later, after your appointment." She did not answer. The silence was answer enough. Megan touched the edge of the folder. "David will blame you. David is responsible for what David chooses. You will lose him." Then he was already gone. For the first time, she looked frightened rather than offended. "What happens to us? There is no us inside the hospital." "I mean the family." I thought about Thanksgiving plates. "Spare keys. The phrase 'she really did help you.' You can tell the truth without asking me to make it comfortable," I said. "Start there." I opened the door. Megan spoke behind me. "Rachel, I am sorry." I stopped but did not turn around. "For which part?" She was quiet too long. That was how I knew the apology was not ready. I left her with it. The independent review lasted 9 weeks. Megan resigned during the 6th. The hospital found that she had altered 3 staffing records during previous downtime events, though none had involved patient harm. It also confirmed that she had pressured managers to describe vacant assignments as coverage transitions rather than staffing gaps. She was not charged with a crime. She lost the position she had and the one she had been preparing to claim. St. Catherine corrected Evelyn's medical record. My name was restored to the care timeline, along with Dr. Grant's verbal orders, Luis's witness statement, and the original staffing gap. The hospital president offered to name a new downtime response protocol after me. I declined. Policies should describe what people must do, not who had to be injured before anyone listened. The final version required an automatic compliance alert whenever a staffing matrix was edited after an emergency event. It also required paper originals to be scanned before entering nursing administration. That was enough of my name in the building. I returned to work on a Monday night. My badge opened the staff elevator on the first try. Luis was at the security desk. He looked at the green light, then at me. "Good system," he said. "It has its moments." Evelyn visited 2 weeks later. She walked slowly and carried a cane she seemed personally offended by. General Ward stayed near the door while she sat beside me in the hospital garden. "You did not return my call," she said. "You had just had surgery." "I have made calls after worse, I believe you," she smiled. Then she handed me a small white card. On it she had written the sentence she remembered from Bay 6. "I stayed until there was somewhere safer for you to go." "I wanted to make sure someone kept the right words," she said. I placed the card behind my identification badge, not because I needed proof. Because some records deserved to remain close to the person who lived them. "David wrote twice," his first letter explained Megan. His second explained himself. I answered neither. 3 months later he called and left a message without defending her. He said he had confused loyalty with helping someone avoid consequences. He said he understood if I did not call back. I did not call back that day. But I kept the message. Forgiveness is not the same as pretending the door was never locked. Sometimes it is simply deciding you may open it later, from your own side. Megan never wrote. At Christmas, she sent a card addressed to David's sister. Not Rachel, not Major Mercer, not the nurse from Bay 6. Just a relationship she still believed explained me. I returned it unopened. The next morning, I worked another night shift. At 5:50, a new nurse called from the emergency department and said she was worried about an older man whose numbers looked normal but whose skin did not. "Trust what you see," I told her. "I'm coming." As I crossed the pedestrian bridge, sunrise reflected against the hospital tower. For a moment, every window looked bright enough to hide what had happened behind it. Then the light shifted. You could see the rooms again. The offices, the hallways, the places where people had acted well, and the places where they had chosen convenience. By sunrise, St. Catherine had once erased my name. 9 weeks later, it put the name back, but that was not the justice I carried with me. Justice was the next nurse knowing she could call. It was an empty assignment line nobody was allowed to rewrite. It was a patient being believed before her body had to become dramatic enough for the room. Megan thought removing my name would protect everything she had built. Instead, it revealed what the building had been resting on. I did not save Evelyn Ward alone. I never claimed that I did. I only stepped into a room everyone else believed could wait. And when the hospital tried to erase that choice, the truth survived in the places no one thought to clean away. A scanner log, a recorded call, a sealed envelope, and one forgotten sheet of carbon paper. Some people believe honor is what remains after your name is announced. I learned it is what remains when your name is gone. It is the work you still would have done. It is the person who is still breathing. And it is the quiet certainty that no one who helped erase you will ever again decide whether you were there.